Good morning, YouTube. JT Serenity Farms prepping here. Prepare to be segregated, isolated, and eventually incarcerated. Why? Because this is what I give my goats, literally, for their upset stomachs. They love this stuff. It's really cool seeing them walk around with a little pink. I just give them a little, and this cures their upset stomach and diarrhea within a day or two, which is deadly for goats. Literally, this is on every YouTube channel for goats I've ever seen, and they love the taste, and it really does work. It does taste pretty good, right? Okay, so you're going to be isolated, segregated, and incarcerated for not doing that. We already see the pressure, peer pressure, the shunning, the threats. Everyone is being coerced, intimidated, or shamed in one way or another. High school kids across the country are being told if they want to participate in sports, go to their junior prom, go to a senior ball, gotta do it. Gotta protect your mom, your dad, your brother or your sister, and your grandma. Shaming for no reason, with no factual evidence anywhere that these do anything positive. None. Zero. It's an experiment, which is why your insurance company will likely tell you to go pound salt if something bad happens, because it has been deemed experimental and you're a lab rat. So now what do we have? Yesterday in New York, the Mets and the Yankees decided, because MLB is woke, that they're going to allow the haves and the have-nots to attend their games, but they're going to segregate them. Is there going to be plexiglass shields running from the field all the way to the top mezzanine deck? It's kind of an open air stadium. Be interesting to see how that plays out. They're pandering. They need money. I don't know that the Mets will even notice an increase in fans. But we'll see how that spreads, pun intended. Okay, so where else do we see this at? Nurses are being fired for refusing to comply. You're going to see all sorts of private businesses mandating is as a requirement of employment. Eventually, this has to get to the court. I think that obviously all these corporations, private businesses, institutions of higher learning, they will put down their tyrannical, unconstitutional edicts and then drag their feet as long as they possibly can before this gets to the Supremes, because the longer they can drag this out, the more peer pressure, the more coercion, the more people who may succumb to all of those outside influences and do the wrong thing. So, colleges in New York, RIT for one that I know of, is already mandating that people enrolling for the semester coming up here, would be the fall semester in September, will have it. Apparently there's an opt-out process, but besides virtual learning, how do you opt out besides dropping out? And I don't think that's what colleges want. That won't work well for the money grabbers there, will it? But there's not a lot you and I can do to control what the masses, am in parentheses, sheepletards, uninformed, are going to do. They're either going to do it or they're not. Okay? There should be major concern about how those haves affect us have-nots. Lots of stories out there about the effects that it has on the have-nots just for breathing air, let alone getting busy, which they already recommend don't do for 28 days. And as it turns out, odds are good if you got it and are still at childbearing or producing years, that's probably over. But then again, reducing the population has always been part of the master plan demic, hasn't it? One way or another, hook or crook. So, those of us who use this and realize that our bodies are the best defense against almost anything that we may come in contact with, say, no. We've discussed this before. At some point, we're going to be the zombies, meaning we're going to be avoided like the plague, when in reality, the others are the plague. So I particularly don't want to be around anyone that's a have. So I need to find a way to know who was dumb enough to partake, because I don't want to be around them anymore, apparently. So they may not have to isolate and segregate us, as we're likely going to do it on our own as more and more evidence is blatantly obvious to the real woke folk. But we are going to be stigmatized. That's already happening. You see piece of crap racist Joy Reid saying that we need to be penalized severely. And then you have other fake news idiots pushing that narrative now. You see the state of New Jersey, a jab and a beer. So for a $5 beer, you're going to do something to yourself that you have no idea what the consequences are. Okay. I would like to sell those folks some land, please. And you hear Pedo Joe. It's your patriotic duty, for God's sakes. Where was I? That thing. Then he goes and sees the 95-year-old Carter traders, and he's not wearing his diaper. Babysitter's not wearing her diaper, and then they go outside and they got their diapers on as they walk away. Okay. So, and then after all this, when people do take all those actions, it's still required? I gotta laugh because it's so deadly serious that we would be paralyzed and be able to do nothing. But it's coming where we are not, meaning the have-nots. We're not going to be allowed to buy, to sell, to trade, to shop, to travel. Oh, Canada, communist wacko Trudeau, they're not going to allow anyone to enter the country without So, how's that going to work? They are not a self-sufficient country. They're an island connected to New York. I can be in Canada in 20 minutes. Probably go there once or twice a year for the heck of it. Fine. But there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people from my community that work there, and vice versa. Travel through the border every day. I guarantee you, they will be told, you have no choice. What about all the border agents that work both sides of the border? Now, Canada, like Pedo Joe, they allow illegal scumbag terrorists to invade their country with no questions asked. But if you work there, you're not going to be allowed to go without... Yeah, it's ass backwards, right? Back asswards. Okay, so here's a little stat that the mainstream fake news isn't telling you. Besides the non-fact, Pedo Joe has no clue how many people are haves. He just keeps making up numbers in his head. And what you're not being told is there were over 5 million people who got number 1 and didn't go get number 2. And suddenly, those people are still being counted in the original numbers. Kind of like the pandemic 40 cycle, 28 cycle fake, right? Okay? So those 5 million people have been notified that as long as it hasn't been 60 days, they could probably still go get, and it will be somewhat effective. And then, of course, you will need a booster, but that was coming anyway. But we are going to be ostracized. We are going to be shunned. We are going to be shamed. We are going to be isolated, segregated, and if they get their way, eventually incarcerated. Let me know what you think. Like, share, subscribe, comment, notification bell. But for now, JT, signing off. Don't forget to take care of those goats.